What is the future of podcasting? In this video, I am going to talk you through the multidimensional understanding of the future of podcasting and the role that you might be playing. Whether you are a podcaster, perhaps you work in a team on a podcast, or you have some kind of interest in this industry, then this video is going to be for you. So, you might be currently feeling unclear or uncertain on where podcasting is heading, or what is the future going to look like for the industry, and how can we be agile? How can we prepare ourselves? How can we evolve ready to receive what lies ahead? And also understanding how can we be of greatest service to our audience. So in this video, you'll be able to gain clarity on the important role that you are playing and the understanding of what that role looks like from the broader multidimensional perspective of the current changes that are happening on a planetary level. You will understand how your contribution matters to the collective and the impact that you are having. And with that understanding, you'll be able to unlock new levels of determination, drive, and commitment in order to embody the new version of you that both your audience and the future version of you are both counting on. So the plan that I'm going to talk you through today is going to be 4 sections. What is a podcast? What are the benefits? What is the multidimensional view? And then finally, what is the future of podcasting? So, section 1, what is a podcast? In order for us to really truly understand where is the future going, in what direction, what trajectory are we headed in, you have to understand how did we get where we are today to be able to know which direction are we running towards. So let's unpack the word podcast first of all. The word podcast was first of all used in an article that was written by Ben Hammersley in 2004, written for The Guardian. This article was called Audible Revolution, and it was talking about these big changes that were happening in forms of media and the emergence of what we now know to be called podcasting. And so in this article, he was reflecting on, well, what can we call this new form of media? And he gives a few suggestions. He says audio blogging, podcasting, or guerrilla media. And so the podcasting term that was created in that article for the first time was the combination of 2 words. It was a blending of the word iPod plus broadcast. So let's unpack both of those. An iPod, obviously, we know as being a portable media player that was very popular and used by a lot of people at that time. We're talking over 20 years ago. And the word broadcast, when we break that down and understand the etymology of that, it actually originates from the industry of agriculture. So it was originally used to refer to the sowing of seeds by scattering them. So broad meaning wide, and cast meaning to throw or to spread. So it literally meant to widely spread your seeds. It was then in the 1920s that the word broadcast started to be used to describe the way radio transmitters sent signals out in all directions. And it was at this time where we had the emergence of a new format of media, which was the one-to-many format, where radio stations and TV were being introduced for the first time, where it was one transmission sent out to many, many people. So finally then we have a new, deeper level of clarity and understanding of this word podcast. So we now can understand that what it really means is a widely distributed electronic message sent direct to the consumer, accessed on demand on a personal device. So that gives us now a clearer understanding of the origins of this word and what this industry is actually really focused on and is delivering to the audience, to the consumer. So now we've broken that down, let's move into section 2. So what are the benefits of podcasting? In order to understand the future of where podcasting is really going, we need to understand what are its key characteristics, what are its strengths that are going to be propelling it forward. So podcasting, first of all, is an independent form of media. It is free from the traditional hierarchies and institutions of control and authority that the legacy forms of media have been trapped within. So podcasting is a place for free speech. It's a place where people can come and share their ideas freely. It's not scripted. People can come and speak from the heart. And that enables it to be also something that is breaking out into more niche areas of being able to explore people's unique perspectives or unique interests, which previously was not possible. And it's also independent because it is an industry that has very low barriers to entry. So previously, if you wanted to get into some kind of like television or radio, you had to know the right people, you had to have the right connections, and there were these huge costs involved of running these big sets or productions or having audiences. So it meant that it was a very closed circuit, it was very tightly controlled. Whereas podcasting now is something that anyone with a smartphone essentially is able to record themselves and share their ideas and publish them online for other people to access. The second benefit, transparent. So podcasting is very transparent in that it is being created in a way that is direct to the audience. So the podcaster is sharing information about the process and the production and their thoughts, and the audience have a more intimate connection with the person who is creating the podcast and the people who are actually receiving what is being put out, rather than the presenters just being someone who is employed to play a role. It is actually more a expression of an individual. So there's these middlemen that have been cut out, creating this new level of transparency. And that also unlocks this new feedback loop, which exists between the audiences of podcasts being able to comment and share and give feedback and share their experiences, which is then being received and being used by the podcaster or the podcasting team to actually be reintegrated into their production and their formats and their growth. The third benefit, podcasting is sovereign. What I mean by this is that the people who run the podcast have total creative control over what they are producing, who they want to invite onto the podcast, what guests they want to speak with, what topics they want to cover, which areas that they want to explore further into in the course of a conversation. And so this brings out this new, deeper level of authenticity, where the podcast becomes an expression of someone's authentic curiosity, their authentic consciousness expression. Whereas traditionally with TV or legacy forms of media, that wasn't the case. It was being very controlled, it was very shut down, it was very scripted. And so there was this lack of this authentic expression of someone being able to really truly share their experience, their thoughts, their reflections in the moment. Benefit number 4, podcasting is innovative. So that means it is experimental, it is progressive, It is evolving and changing and learning all the time and finding new ways to innovate in order to be of higher service to people. It is also accessible. So, because of the format of podcasting, it is information that is being sent out and published to a global audience. Anywhere in the world can access it and has equal availability to access it with an internet connection. It's also entirely free. So there are no barriers to entry from the point of view of the audience from being able to access the knowledge and the information that is being shared. So it really flattens the playing field of everyone can access this equally and fairly, and the information is being shared across the planet. That also then creates this new sense of community because, as I mentioned, that these are podcasts that are moving into more niche expressions of people's authenticity or their interests, then people can find like-minded people who are interested in the same content, that really feel compelled to connect with people who have those same interests in those same areas, listening to those same conversations. Podcasting is also empowering. So the format of the conversations that happen and the information that is shared means that knowledge and lessons and experiences from people who are masters in their field or have very specific forms of training or experience in research are now able to share what they are finding, share their lessons, share their experiences directly with a global audience without there being this time delay of someone having to build up a reputation, build up a career, publish articles, publish research. So it's really brought together this narrowing of the gap between people who are experts in particular fields and the general public being able to access what is it that these people know that can help me. Podcasting is also flexible. So the flexibility from the point of view of the audience means that the content can be watched on demand. You can watch any episode at any time, and it is entirely audience controlled. The audience member, the viewer, has complete autonomy over choosing what do I want to watch? Who am I interested by? When do I want to watch it? How long am I going to watch for? And so it creates this great level of flexibility, autonomy, agency that previously audiences didn't have when it was traditional media going out perhaps on TV. And then finally, podcasting is highly supportive. It is an industry that is service led and is inspired by providing increasing levels of value to the audience, to the viewer. And again, there's this feedback loop of understanding what is being shared that really lands with people and really helps people, helps them integrate knowledge and create shifts in consciousness. And then that information is then being recycled and reused to increase the level of service and the level of guidance, the level of help that the platform and the conversations and the podcast is able to deliver people. So it is very much a service-led industry, which, while there are some forms of traditional legacy media, of some radio or some forms of TV that were serving people, you can't say that that was true for every form of media or not everything that was broadcast. So this is very much a new frequency, a new vein of intention that is running through podcasting that is saying, we are here to serve you, we are here to help you, and we want to do that with increasing returns. Okay, amazing. So moving on to section 3, the multidimensional view of podcasting. So podcasting is highly liberating. From the multidimensional view of expanding out and viewing what is occurring from the higher dimensional state, podcasting is creating this collapsing of time and space and barriers that previously existed. This is very much the shift up into the 4D state, the fourth dimension, which is when the experience of time actually is being altered. So you have more of an experience of timelessness, and you're not as trapped in the constraints of time and space as the third dimension experience of consciousness. So, how this is playing out in podcasting is the idea that anyone can pick up the podcast and watch for as long as they want at any time. And so it's got this real flexibility about it. It creates the experience of being much more fluid, much more adaptable, much more agile from the perspective of the viewer, from the perspective of the audience. And so previous barriers of, oh, I've missed my show because I wasn't in front of the TV at 7 p.m. on a Friday night, those kind of barriers now have been completely collapsed or eradicated through this new media form and production. It's also highly introspective. Because of the increasing depth of the nature of the conversations that often happen in the podcasting format, it means that the dimensions of consciousness are being explored in ways that people can follow along with. So when I'm talking about the dimensions of consciousness, what I'm really saying is we're moving beyond just an understanding of the surface level. This is the conscious mind, this is the rational, analytical mind that I take everything at surface value. That would be the 3D dimension of your awareness. But podcasting is now incorporating more and more reflection on, okay, so what was happening in my subconscious, which is more 2D, the second dimension, where people are able to analyze, oh, I had this pattern playing out in my life, and I started to realize, like, oh, this was my limiting belief, or this was my fear that I hadn't realized had been playing in the background. We're also digging deeper into the first dimension of consciousness, which is all about ancestral programming and conditioning, the conditioning of the collective of society that we all inherit, either through family or through exposure to things like media. So we're now having conversations that audiences can tune into, which are incorporating in these other dimensions of consciousness. And then going upwards in consciousness, we also have the higher dimensions, which are exploring out into, how can I expand in an increasingly loving way? How can I take what I was thinking was happening, which might have been fear-based or based in shame, and how can I flip that? How can I lift that now to a higher frequency, which is in greater alignment with the divine perspective, which is a loving frequency? So that might be happening in conversations where, for example, someone can say, oh, I had this argument with this person. But in the end, what I realized was this person, is battling their own demons. They're struggling with their own issues or their own traumas. And what that is literally doing is showing people how to navigate through the dimensions from taking what previously might have just been, oh, I take this at surface level, I had this argument with this person, and therefore I do not like them because they said this to me. We're now being able to shift and flex between understanding this much more nuanced, much more complex understanding of the nature of consciousness and how ideas and experiences and beliefs are actually very adaptable, and we can take them and we can transmute them, we can shift them and actually see things from a very different view. It's not just that, oh, this is my one opinion or my one experience and that is concrete and fixed and finite. We're now understanding that actually there is this big spectrum where things can twist and change and morph, And through doing that and understanding how we play with the dimensions of consciousness, we can actually bring about great healing to ourselves and greater depths of understanding. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about dimensions of consciousness and the introspective nature of the depth that podcasting is reaching. Also, podcasting is extremely inspiring for people. So again, because of this new depth and this new exploration of different levels of consciousness and different expressions of consciousness, what happens is the podcasts are being experienced like a consciousness mirror. When someone sees an example or a story or an interview of somebody else overcoming a problem that they face or an argument that they had or struggles in their life, this basically mirrors back to the audience members that, oh wow, this is an opportunity for me to also find this new solution to my problems. Or it's almost like laying the path of like, this is a way to get out of the jungle. This is a path out of the jungle. That when you can see someone else articulating the example of the way that they overcame their issues or the way they found their success or their solutions, it then reflects back as a mirror to all of the viewers to say, oh, okay, so there is new and exciting ways that I can also find solutions to my own problems based on understanding how this person navigated out of their own struggles. Podcasting is also working to elevate frequency. When you connect with someone through online digital media and transmissions, what you are actually tapping into is the energy field of that person. And so podcasting is actually broadcasting and sending out a frequency transmission of levels of consciousness that other people can then realize are experiences that are an opportunity that exist available to them too. And the level of your consciousness, again, as you learn to shift and explore these different frequencies, it's almost like understanding that your consciousness is actually like a radio station. And you can tune the radio, you can tune your consciousness to be at different stations and receive a different radio show or a different song. And this is what the frequency transmission is actually creating. It's allowing people who, let's say you've been used to being at this station of frequency of consciousness, it allows you to raise, to meet the consciousness of the person that you're listening to. So this is what is happening right now as you watch this video. What you are doing is you are tapping into my energy field. You are tapping into my frequency of consciousness. And it's like your consciousness has the invitation, the opportunity to be able to tune like a radio into that higher frequency of the person who is presenting the video. And so for a moment, you can shift and step into what it feels like to be tuned to this radio station that I am currently at. And that gives people a new sense of expansion of, wow, okay, there's a frequency here that I haven't felt for myself before, or that I'm not familiar with. So it really becomes this very elevating experience for the viewer to be able to tap into new states of consciousness of what it can feel like to be them. Podcasting is also extremely expansive. So in this way, you can think of podcasting as operating like an ascension tool. My foot's gone dead. So what is ascension? Ascension is the word that refers to the evolution of consciousness. And the evolution of consciousness is not about gaining increasing amounts or volume of information. It's not about, oh, how many books can I memorize? or how many tests can I pass. The expansion of consciousness is actually about increasing the bandwidth of your consciousness. So as you raise through the vibrations and the dimensions of consciousness, what actually ends up happening is that you are increasing the breadth, the bandwidth of information and data that you can access in any one present moment. That is what the actual expansion of consciousness is through the process of ascension. And an easy way to understand that or view that is thinking about the average life of a human 100 years ago. So the consciousness that people held 100 years ago was extremely narrow compared to where we're at right now. Because of all these changes in the level of consciousness of the planet and the ways that that is being expressed, for example, in things like having the introduction of the internet, and the amount of volume that we can, or the volume of information that we can access now, people are able to speak from a place of an expanded breadth of consciousness compared to the average person 100 years ago who might have just been living a more simple, more narrow focused life or expectation. So this is what I'm really talking about. Podcasting is having this effect of expanding people's awareness and expanding the breadth of consciousness. It is also extremely unifying. So from the multidimensional perspective, not only are there communities being created where you can connect with people online who are also into the same things as you are, or, other viewers who watch the same podcasts as you, I'm also talking here about the creation of global frequency grids. So there are energy grids which surround the planet, almost like having the grid of the internet. And it is a grid of consciousness that is connecting us all and that we're all like plugged into. It's a little bit like if you've ever been to a fun fair, and they have the dodgems. And so the dodgems usually are running through a cable that runs up the back of the dodgem and connects into an electrified grid that surrounds the entire area. And so as the dodgem car moves around, this electrified grid is being connected through this pole behind you, which is giving power to the car as you move around the whole area. So there are consciousness grids that are giving us energy and information and downloads that we are all plugged into all the time, just like the dodgems who are moving around the lap of the fun fair. And the unifying nature of podcasting is that it is creating these global frequency grids of consciousness between people that are creating these networks in energy and frequency of people who are connecting with these same transmissions, with these same ideas, with these same intentions. And as the grid gets more and more people and is energized with more and more attention, then it becomes stronger and it becomes an even greater invitation to other people to also tap in and access. The allure towards it becomes greater for people who are just becoming introduced to it, or are starting to question things, or are starting to seek new answers or new experiences. So the more information, the more attention that it's being charged with, the stronger the pull, the magnetism towards that frequency feels for everyone else. Podcasting is also highly restorative. In the way that we are understanding, it is increasing people's autonomy. It is increasing people's sovereignty. Sovereignty is this idea of not just having personal authority, but it's the opportunity to align with your true essence, the opportunity to align with your true expression, your personal divine brilliance of who and what you truly are. And you can understand that if historically there were, let's say, 4 main TV channels, and everybody in the country has to basically choose between, oh, which one of these TV channels am I going to watch today? With the introduction of podcasting and these new, more niche, more specific, more in-depth conversations that people can access, it gives people this opportunity to actually have a restoration progress to their true will, to their true desire of understanding who and what truly am I. What is it that resonates with me? What are the things that really interest me? And in that process, that is actually a restoration of the divine will on this planet. Your true essence, your true self, your true authenticity is the expression of the divine. So the more that you can release the programming and conditioning and the urge to conform to public consensus, the more you can tap into your unique brilliance and your unique expression, you are becoming an increasing channel for divine will and divine expression in this layer of reality. And then finally, we have the fact that podcasting is a living entity from the multidimensional view. It is not stale and stagnant. It is in fact something that is more morphing, it is evolving, it is growing. And it's creating these new timelines into the future that are also holding this new vibrant vitality kind of energy. Let me give you a metaphor. Traditional media forms, TV, radio, that were highly controlled or scripted, if you were to see that as like a metaphor of like the timelines and the frequency that that is holding, it's almost like seeing a tree, and that branch of the tree was dead, it was like rotten, it was diseased, it was toxic, it wasn't going anywhere, it was dying off. Whereas when I see the timelines of the new creations that are coming, like these offshoots off of this tree, which are coming through from this broadcasting, podcasting industry and energy and frequency and individuals, it's like having this new branch that comes off the tree, which is high in vitality, it is high in new growth, it is flourishing, it is blooming. There's real life and sustenance and life force energy that is pouring through this new branch where it's coming into full bloom. So this is what I mean from the multidimensional view of podcasting being this living expression. It is something that is shifting and changing and growing, and with that comes the opportunity for increasing levels of guidance and help and service to the world and to the planet and to all of the people who are viewing. So there's an interesting point here that I just want to highlight as well. Having now recapped and understood what are all these benefits of podcasting and this multidimensional view of energetically what podcasting is doing and what role it's playing from like a higher dimensional perspective energetically, what this is also telling us, crucially, is revealing to us things about these past legacy forms of media. Because what we're almost demonstrating through this list and through this conversation is all of the things that had been denied, that we didn't realize we weren't accessing. The benefits of podcasting coming through now are actually showing us the traits and the frequencies that we had been forfeiting before, when we were just receiving and conforming to the historic legacy media forms of TV and radio coming from only a few small number of broadcasters. So if podcasting is independent, transparent, sovereign, innovative, accessible, empowering, flexible, and supportive, then you've got to really start questioning and have some alarm bells ringing of like, well, why was this being denied for so long? And what is this telling us? What is this actually reflecting back to us, revealing to us about the status quo that existed before this new emergence of this new kind of media? Okay, so moving on now to section 4. So, the future of podcasting. Now that we've really understood what is podcasting, what does that word mean, what are the key traits and characteristics, those benefits of podcasting, what actually is it, what is it delivering, and also that multidimensional view of what is the broader understanding from a higher dimensional view of energetically, what is it contributing. Now we're in the place where we can actually say, okay, so now we know where we're at. What is coming forward? What can we start to anticipate? What can we start to prepare for? What direction is this headed? So the first point that I really want to explain, which is of great importance to understand when we're looking into the future, is to understand this concept of the fact that we are currently in what's called a planetary ascension. The word ascension, as I mentioned before, is about the evolution of consciousness. And as consciousness evolves, when you understand that there's a multi-dimensional reality, so there are different layers of reality expressing, and as you learn to tune your frequency to a different radio station, there are actually different expressions of reality happening at different station numbers. So the planetary ascension is the process of not just one individual retuning their consciousness, but instead it is happening to the entire planet Earth. And what this means is the rules of the game are changing. As I said before, if you reflect back on the human consciousness of the average person 100 years ago and understand how much has changed, how rapidly the nature of the world and the nature of consciousness has shifted and expanded and broadened out in just 100 years, what you are basically seeing is the knock-on effects of the planetary ascension process that is occurring. So energetically, what is happening is the planet itself is moving from one dimension of consciousness up into another dimension of consciousness. And everything on the planet, as a result of this shift, is being lifted along with that process. It's a little bit like, imagine, if you think of it's a little bit like saying we're basically like fleas on a dog, is what I'm saying. And we are the ones piggybacking on this planet as this life form on the surface, like the flea on a dog. And the entire planet is shifting in frequency and shifting up in consciousness, which means that all of the fleas on the dog, as the dog changes and shifts in consciousness, they are all being taken up in consciousness as well, as we shift to what is an actual new layer of reality. And we will experience our consciousness as being different, and we will experience our reality as being different. So it's a little bit like understanding as well the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg? Have we evolved because of the introduction of new technologies or new ideas? It would be easy to say, oh, well, everyone's consciousness has changed because of the internet. And I would agree with that. But really what's happened is the consciousness is what is being turned up. The dial is being cranked up. And so that then reflected physically in things like the invention and the introduction of the internet, Or you can say the same about the introduction of AI into our reality. Really, these physical expressions in our reality are reflections back to us of the shifting in the dial of consciousness that is happening within us all and is happening on a planetary level. So that gives you just an understanding of the process that we are actually currently going through and have been going through now for many years, and it is continuing and it is increasing. It's a little bit like the idea of being in like a sausage in the frying pan, and like the heat is being turned up. At first it's quite slow and you're like, oh, it's getting a little bit hot in here. And then suddenly, before you know it, your ass is on fire and you're like, oh my god, it's boiling. That is what is happening with consciousness on the planet. The consciousness level is being cranked up. And that is why there is a lot of divisive conflict that is happening. There's been a lot of natural disasters and earth planetary changes. There's been a lot of inventions of new things, and information historically that had been being hidden has been being revealed. So not a lot of information that previously could be pushed under the rug has been bubbling up to the surface to be seen and to be healed and to be transmuted, all a part of this process of the shifting of consciousness. So those are the ways where externally you can see the symptoms of the ascension process that is occurring. The other point that I want to make about this is understanding creation mechanics. This is about understanding the mechanism through which consciousness is rendering physical reality. Time and space, as we experience them, are actually illusions. So they are just that, they are an experience. So they don't inherently exist as we are experiencing them. When you understand that everything we're experiencing is basically a field of energy, it's a field of divine consciousness. And so creation mechanics are this process, this knock-on effect of understanding how attention actually is what is creating and determining the rendering of physical reality. Now, that is a process that I can talk through and will probably cover in more detail in another video, but I just want you to understand that, we could continue having a conversation about the debate of like simulation theory, of whether or not we're in a simulation, or what is the true nature of reality, what is the true nature of our own consciousness or the divine. Rather than having that debate over whether simulation theory is valid or not, what I will instead be covering is the actual mechanism through which the simulation is rendered. And so when you understand that process and the chain of events, the knock-on effect of how that is created, what that does is basically ends the discussion of are we in a simulation or not, because I can share with you the mechanics of how the simulation actually is working, how it is created. But for the moment, for the purpose of this video, I don't want to give you too much kind of overload of information all at once. The point that I want to make here, which is of high importance towards the future of podcasting, is understanding that attention, time, energy, and attention is what is rendering physical reality. And so in podcasting, the battle for attention that podcasting has entered into, the battle for attention already existed, but podcasting has come in as a disruptor into that battle. That is in fact not really a battle for attention. Attention is a means to an end. What really is being fought over is the power to determine the version of the future that is being created. And when you can have control over the attention of people and the consciousness of people, the life force energy, you can basically control what version of the future plays out. And therefore, if you were someone who had control historically, you can use attention to maintain your grip on power and maintain the oppression of other people, to deny them their right to basically choose and determine their own future in order to protect your own personal interests. So creation mechanics of understanding this nature of attention being connected to the very future that we experience, podcasting is playing this vital role of the liberation of our future. Historic methods have been used by groups to limit the consciousness level of the collective in order to maintain the power that they have held. And by entering into this battle of consciousness, this battle of attention, podcasting is actually creating this new branch of opportunity of saying there are new frequencies available to us, and this brings in a new light, a new hope of new versions of the future playing out, where the historic grip on power is actually being dismantled. So I would actually encourage you to start to see podcasting very much as a revolution. Again, going back to the article by Ben Hammersley, he called that article Audible Revolution. And I think there is so much power in really contemplating how podcasting is a part and playing a part in a consciousness revolution that is occurring on the planet. And what is a revolution? A revolution is an overthrowing of an established order. So podcasting is taking back power that has been denied from people, from the collective, and restoring people's awareness of their own autonomy and their own right to choose who and what they want to be and how they think and what future they want to create for themselves. And so in this revolution, this in many ways is an emancipation of consciousness. It is a restoration of sovereignty, the right to determine your own state, your own frequency, your own thoughts, your own behaviors, and restoring autonomy to people in ways that previously we hadn't realized how much our thoughts, behaviors, and actions were being informed by something external to us. We were being told what to think. We were being told what to do. We were being told what to expect from ourselves and from others. And so this really narrowed down the creative flourishing, the creative potential of what we otherwise could have created for ourselves. It was almost being told externally, oh, this is a script that you need to follow in your lifetime. And those barriers, those chains are now being broken. Reflecting back again in the Audible Revolution article that we started with, interestingly, one of the other suggested names after podcasting for this industry was guerrilla media, where guerrilla is a word for war. It means war. And what that is basically a reference to is this idea of a small independent group conducting irregular style of fighting against a larger dominant force. Which I think that feels so powerful to think about it that way. I mean, the word's not as catchy, so I can see why podcasting caught on and this one didn't, but it is very much a guerrilla form of media in that it is a fight for the right to express ourselves authentically and to connect in deeper ways rather than just seeing people who are sharing surface level conversations about surface level topics. We're now realizing there's so much more depth to us, and we can come together and we can explore that and find connection and find healing through our shared experiences. Whereas before, it's almost like everyone was feeling so isolated, so alienated, that I don't know anyone else that's struggling with things like me. I don't have any examples, or I don't see any images of people who struggle with the things I struggle with inside. So everything was being suppressed down internally. Whereas now so much of this internal suffering that everyone was carrying independently or feeling isolated, trapped within, this is now really being able to come out and be aired and be released and be healed. And it is through going or following that process that we find this sense of community together and we help each other. This is an interdependent network of like-minded people all trying to find greater levels of peace and healing and love in their experience, in their life. So, what to do with this? What I would recommend for people watching this to understand is that your frequency is contagious. And so, what I would recommend you doing is leading by example and understanding that the best way that you can liberate others and liberate not just the other people in your team, but also your entire audience and all of the people that your audience interact with. The best way that you can serve them and liberate their consciousness is through the liberation of your own. It's a little bit like seeing yourself as becoming a frequency super spreader, where the more that you can learn self-mastery, the more that you can map out the dimensions of your consciousness, of your subconscious, of your pain, of your trauma, find what's there, map it out, heal it, and transmute it. The more you can do that and shift, the more you can share with other people, and the higher level transmission that you are sending out that other people can tune into, other people can access, other people can feel that note of like, oh, wow, that's a new state that I didn't realize I could also get to. So it becomes this extremely inspiring process of teaching others the depths of themselves and demonstrating, being a role model, being a way shower for other people to understand who and what they truly are through cultivating a very deep and very intimate understanding of who and what you truly are. And how to do that. The way to do that, which has already been occurring in podcasting naturally, is through understanding the process of consciousness alchemy. Alchemy being the process of transformation. So it's used traditionally to refer to magicians who could transform lead into gold. Consciousness alchemy is the process of transforming, transmuting pain and suffering and trauma and basically karmic energies, finding them and transforming them into gold. And then it becomes something that is empowering you. It becomes something that is liberating you. You can access new levels of joy and creativity and passion that you previously were not accessing, and you previously didn't even know that it was an option for you. So this transmuting of distortions is this path of increasingly finding new levels of life force leverage, of improving not only your own experience and your own self-mastery and your own successes, your own fulfillment, but also then that becomes something, a gift that you can share with everyone you interact with, everyone you work with, everyone that is watching your channel, and then they share it again with everyone that they interact with. So it becomes this beautiful network of healing and compassion and feeling seen. And it all starts with being willing and being brave and being inspired enough to go in and find what are the things that I have been denying about myself. What are the distortions or the lies or the deception that I didn't realize I had been existing within, things that I had received or been programmed with or been conditioned with throughout my life that happened without my awareness and without my consent. In this way, then, of understanding that podcasting is playing this role already and is going to do it to increasingly new levels, it is becoming a springboard. So it is a springboard, or like a petri dish, for not only new communities, but also new forms of leadership, who are people that follow new rules and are creating new systems. And those systems lead to new outcomes and a new future. So this is, again, just this new offshoot of that branch of that tree that is actually going to grow into something that is much bigger, much more impactful, much more powerful in the world. And it is going to be serving people in new and expansive ways as it becomes this petri dish for a new style of being, a new style of what it means to be human, when we start to sever those ties from feeling like I need to conform to the expectations of others or conform to the expectations of reality, this system of mind control, essentially, that we hadn't realized we had been born into. And so much of what we had thought about reality that we were taught was fundamental actually is optional and actually is a choice that we didn't realize had been made for us. And as you enter into these new, deeper levels of self mastery, you will reveal and you will find new places in your consciousness that will allow you to make new choices in places that you didn't realize this was even a choice for me. You didn't realize this was even an option because of how much we have been told and programmed about what to think about ourselves, about others, and about the true nature of reality, the true nature of the divine. So this is, again, what I mean by the rules of the game are changing. This is really a process of reality innovation. We are building a new future from the unknown. We are breaking out of the historic script of being taught that the menu of choices that you have are whatever exists in the past. And you can take those ingredients that you've seen from history or from other people, and you can choose between that finite list. What we're now doing is we're scrapping that list and we're saying there are so many new, innovative, disruptive ways of thinking and being and building and creating that have never been seen before. This is the art of true innovation. This is not just an innovation of yourself or your business or your podcast. We're talking about the actual innovation and the disruption of the rendering of reality, of the future. It is going to morph and change in new and exciting and profound ways in response to the alchemical process that we can guide ourselves through internally in consciousness. So any plans that you have for the future are probably thinking way too small. The old historic way of thinking would say, well, I want to increase my revenue by X amount, or I want to increase my subscribers by X number, or I want to have X number of employees. And that is the old script talking. That is what history has told us we can aim for, which is just, oh, I'm going to do a bit more or a bit bigger of something, or I'm going to do it quicker, I'm going to make it more efficient. These are such limited ways of thinking about the future that those goals or those dreams that you have, I would say scrap them. When you understand the seismic shift that is occurring through the ascension process of consciousness on a planetary scale being shifted and being changed, and realizing that through understand this art of consciousness alchemy, you can tune your frequency to tap into new inspired ideas. You can tap into accessing feedback and data from the omniscient part of yourself that can see all the timelines of the future and can pick out new and exciting and innovative ways of creating experiences for yourself that are not even on the menu yet. It's like a chef creating an entirely new dish, something so innovative. No one's ever thought of this before. It doesn't even have a name yet. No one knows what this is. What are the ingredients? How did they make this? This is what I want you to start thinking about. What are the dreams that haven't yet been dreamt? What is the future for myself that I have never seen demonstrated before? That is the person that is counting on you now to shift in consciousness in order to allow them to become realized. This is the opportunity, this is the gift of this moment that is offered to you and is there to be claimed. And so, again, just understand that this process of innovation is not just innovation of your podcast or your business. It is the very innovation of consciousness, which, when you understand that consciousness is what is rendering physical reality, we are talking about the innovation of the very future, of the very reality that we are entering into, where the rules of the game are entirely changed. So that's my take on the future of podcasting. Of course, go away and reflect on this. Don't just take what I've said as being the only one true answer. There are many answers. There are many different reflections. Think about, your own ideas and what other inspired thoughts come to you based on the information and experiences you've had, which will be different to me. So take this as inspiration to germinate your own thoughts. If you're watching this and you're wanting to understand more and have more information, then I have 2 recommendations for you. So the very first video that I posted on my YouTube channel was one called Planet Earth is Ascending and So Are You. So that would be my first recommendation. It's only a 7-minute video. I recorded this over a year ago. I'm literally speaking into my phone, which is in my hand, and I just recorded a message and I threw it online. I would recommend going back and watching that, which will now make a lot more sense based on everything I've said in this video. Or if you want to hear more about my own personal story of how I became multidimensional Alice and the journey I have been through, then there is a video that I have published of that name, How I Became Multidimensional Alice, which is a longer video of 1:44, which will go in depth into understanding the shift in consciousness that I have been through and the experiences and lessons that I am now sharing with you, and the process that I went to be able to access this knowledge. Is basically the guidance of what kind of position or how informed am I on this information. That is the video to watch if you want to know more about how I got to where I'm at. Okay, so finally then, my final tip for you. If you are someone who is a podcaster, or you are someone who is working in a podcasting team, then I would recommend you use this video as a discussion topic with your team. So send this in your team WhatsApp group, send it in the Slack channel, say, everyone, let's watch this, and then we'll come together and we'll see what ideas we can come up with. It's not just about, like I said, adopting what Alice thinks. This is literally fertilizer for you to grow and expand your ideas and identify which parts of this resonated with you, which parts didn't resonate. What are there other ideas that you have that I have missed, that I haven't covered? So I would recommend using this with your team and setting a meeting to say, everyone watch this video before the meeting, and then we'll come together and we'll all discuss it and see what ideas we have for where we think things are going in the future. And if you're doing that and you want to invite me and include me, then I would love to join. So especially if you're watching this in the weeks or months after this is posted, this is being recorded in October 2025, then reach out to me. Like, if you're having a discussion about this and you want to include me, then send me an invite. Send me a Zoom link. I'll join. You can DM me on Instagram at Multidimensional Alice. So slide in my DMs and let me know what you're up to, what you're doing, what you're planning. Alternatively, if you're someone who has any feedback or any thoughts or any questions from having watched this video, and I get it, like, not everyone wants to share their thoughts or open up in YouTube comments publicly. If that's you and you have a question, or you have something that's really resonated deeply with you about this video, or something that you want to share, then again, find me on Instagram, DM me on Instagram at Multidimensional Alice, and put your YouTube comment into my Instagram DMs so that I can hear from you, so that I know, how is this being received? What has really landed for you? What did you find great value in? Which areas are you feeling confused about? What questions has this created for you? And that will help me massively in understanding, how do I refine my process in the future to be able to make things clearer, to be able to deliver my messages in a way that is more accessible to you and can provide greater value, greater service to you. So I ask for your help, and that you take the initiative to be able to inform me so that I can be of greater value to you. And of course, if you've watched this and you've enjoyed the video, then please subscribe to the channel, share this with your team. Again, ask them to subscribe and hit the like button, comment on the YouTube if that's what you want to do, and keep tuned for more content and more resources that will be coming soon, that will be posted on my channels online in the near future. Thank you for joining me. Thank you. If you've made it this far, then well done, and see you in the next one.